Hello there, I'm Lady Loy. You can find me on Lovers Rock Radio every Friday, 7 till 9, and on Gold Standard Radio every Saturday, 7 till 9. And today's Food for the Heart involves that young girl, that 15-year-old who was stranded for 66 weeks because she had a dual passport. I did cover this in a video in February when I did relay to people that the dual passport would no longer be valid. But nonetheless, this is one of the victims and one I'd like to share with you today through my Food of the Heart series. So first of all, let me say good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on which part of the world you are watching this video from. Welcome to Food for the Heart, where we prepare your next meal. And today's meal is about something many people may not have expected to experience: the feeling of suddenly questioning where you belong. Now, recently there's been a story reported about a 15-year-old girl who became stranded in Rome for several weeks because of issues connected to passport rules and nationality requirements. A young person who should have been thinking about school, friendship, exams, and what she was going to do the weekend suddenly found herself caught in a situation involving documents, regulations, and government procedures. And when we hear stories like this, it is easy to immediately jump into arguments about politics and policies and who is right or wrong. But today on Food for the Heart, I want us to look at human meal underneath the story. Because behind every rule, there is a person, and behind every document, there is a life. Now, many of you will remember that earlier this year I spoke about changes affecting dual nationals and passport rules, and at that time I raised concerns about how these changes might affect ordinary families and have connections to more than one country. Because identity is not always as simple as a box on a form. For many people, belonging is not just one place. It can be a mixture of countries, cultures, languages, family histories, and experiences. A child can be born in one place, have parents from another place, grow up with different traditions in the home, and feel connected to several parts of the world. And that's not unusual. In fact, that is the reality of many families today. But sometimes when systems are created, they deal with categories and paperwork, while human beings live complicated lives. And that is where difficulties can happen. Now, I'm not here today to say that government should have no rules. Countries need systems. Passports exist for a reason. Borders exist for a reason. Security matters, but whenever we create rules, we also have to ask ourselves a very important question. Have we considered the people who will be affected when those rules meet real life? Because a real life has a habit of being much messier than a form. We all know this. We can have everything organised perfectly, or at least you think you have everything organised perfectly, and then life reminds you that you are not actually in charge. You pack your suitcase carefully, check everything 3 times, put your passport somewhere safe, and then spend 10 minutes walking around the house saying, "Where did I put my passport?" Only to find it sitting exactly where you left it, usually in the one place you'd already checked 5 times. We laugh because we've all done something similar. Human beings are wonderful at losing things that are literally right in front of us. But when the missing piece is not something small, when it involves a young person's education, travel, identity, or ability to return home, the consequences become much more serious. And that is why stories like this touch something deeper in us. They remind us that behind every headline there is a teenager who is not thinking about legislation. A teenager is thinking, can I get home? Can I get back to school? When will my normal life return? And for parents, the emotions are even stronger because there is something very powerful about wanting to protect your child. Every parent knows that feeling when their child leaves the house and suddenly your brain starts creating a whole list of possibilities. They say, I'm just going to the shops, and somehow your mind has already imagined 10 different situations. You say, be careful. And then you add another 5 instructions. Take your phone, watch the time, don't forget your keys. Let me know when you get there. The child is probably thinking, I'm only going around the corner. But the parent's heart is already travelling 1,000 miles ahead. That comes from love. It comes from wanting them to be safe. And this is where we have to find balance, because the purpose of any system should ultimately be to serve people, not make people feel powerless. A passport is not just a piece of paper. It represents movement, connection, family, opportunity, and sometimes a sense of who we are. For someone who has lived between cultures, a passport can carry emotional meaning as well as a practical meaning. It can represent grandparents, childhood memories, family traditions, and places that feel like home. And perhaps that is the part we sometimes forget when we discuss rules and regulations. We talk about numbers, procedures, and requirements, but we do not always talk about the human heart involved. We do not always talk about the child sitting in a foreign country wondering when things will return to normal. We do not always talk about the family waiting and worrying. We do not always talk about the disruption to education, confidence, and a child's person's sense of security. And again, this is not about saying rules do not matter. Rules matter, but compassion matters too. Wisdom matters. Listening matters. Because a strong society is not only measured by how carefully it creates rules, it is also measured by how carefully it responds when those rules create unexpected difficulties. We live in a world where many people have multiple identities. They may have family in different countries. They may speak several languages. They may have roots in places their grandparents came from. That does not make belonging weaker. In many cases, it makes belonging richer. We understand this because music has crossed borders, especially as a DJ. A song created in one country can become someone else's favourite song thousands of miles away. A rhythm can travel, a voice can travel, a story can travel. Music reminds us that connection is a part of being human, and perhaps today's food for the heart is asking us to remember that people are not paperwork. Children are not cases. Families are not files. Behind every policy, there are lives being lived. So as we discuss changes in society, whether they involve passports, technology, education, or safety, let us keep asking the same question. How do we protect people while still respecting their humanity? Because sometimes the greatest security we can offer someone is the knowledge that they have been seen, they have been heard, and they have not simply become another number in a system. And maybe that is today's meal for the heart. A reminder that belonging is one of those deepest needs we have. We all want to know where we fit. We all want to know that our identity matters. We all want to know that when life becomes complicated, there is understanding and compassion waiting for us. Because rules may organise society, but it is humanity that holds society together. And as I say this, we have so many rules, and I remember during COVID they kept on changing and changing and changing. I think it was every fortnight. Sorry. They kept changing, and it was forgetting how people operate. It was forgetting how to take people into account. And sometimes the systems cannot recognize people. They cannot bring emotions into it, and that is why they've turned to AI. So people don't get swayed, so that there is uniformity, so that there is no preferential treatment. But sometimes these systems get things wrong. And it's how they're programmed, and it's who programs them. And so as a result, some people get left out, stranded, isolated through no fault of their own. So let me leave you with my usual ending phrase: take care of yourself, take care of each other, and until it's time for your next meal. I hope you have a wonderful evening or a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoy the series. Please let me have your comments and tell me how it lands. I'd appreciate that. This is Lady Loy, over and out, and don't forget to tune in on Friday nights, 7 till 9 on Lovers Rock Radio, and on Saturdays on Gold Standard Radio, 7 till 9. Bye-bye.